welcome to the FPL USA Press Play Podcast. We are the official audio home of hashtag FPL USA. I am one third of our hosting crew here. My name's Bucks. You also might know me from the hit Australian TV series Bluey, as I'm dressed up as Bandit, the dad. Shout out to our most recent podcast guests, Peter from at FPL SideNet and the brilliant podcast that's going on Down Under. But enough about me. I'm old news and I'm the low man on the totem pole by a wide margin. Let me bring in to the airwaves the current best manager on the podcast. And it's not even close this season. He's running away with it. It's beautiful Brian in California. Welcome home, man. Good to have you.
Another pod, Bucks. Game week 29 deadline is a blank, and it's coming up very soon. We're recording on a Wednesday because I was traveling for work at South by Southwest in Austin. I'm a little bit hungover, I'm not going to lie. We had a busy couple days, and most specifically, shout out to some of my great clients out there. We hosted co-hosted a party together, and I'm feeling it right now for sure. And unfortunately, a rare red arrow for me last week in game week 28, as well as Marmouche was leaked to be benched, and I obviously was sleeping in the middle of the night at about 2:30, 3 p.m. Pacific when that happened. So a nice one-pointer for my transfer in. But regardless, I'm just ready to attack this blank. I have 4 free transfers, and we have a lot of questions from the community to get into today. Cannot wait.
Yeah, you're teasing and burying the lead a little bit. You're maybe feeling a little worse for wear, and this is the first game week, I think, in like 2 months where you're seeing red a little bit. So that's not what we want to see. Let's get back on track.
I had a streak of 9 consecutive greens.
Look at that. I'm a pro.
This is only my 7th red arrow of the season. So very much looking to rebound this upcoming week. That's for sure.
We love to see it. Now, just again, game week 29, which is starting this weekend on Saturday, is going to be a blank game week. But before we dive headfirst into the shallow end of that swimming pool, let's just quickly recap the action from game week 28. I'll go first. Again, my season cannot get out of the 7th ring of hell right now. I land on 53 points, red arrow down to 711,000 in the world. Now, that's not great. That's not what we want to see here, especially as professional content creators. But thankfully, I captained Mo Salah, and he's been Mr. Reliable this season because, golly, if I had captained Cole Palmer, I think I'd just be missing in action for the rest of the season here, and no one wants that.
Yeah, absolutely massive swing this week for anybody who kept the faith with Cole Palmer. He misses his first ever career penalty. Truly incredible to have that blocked. And meanwhile, Mo Salah does basically nothing all game. He's pretty much pocketed, and he ends up with 2 PKs converted for a massive 30 points. So if you went with Palmer, you had 1 point, 2 if you captain him. Oh, brutal swing right there for the FPL managers.
Yeah, and goes without saying. I mean, Salah gets his 2 penalties. He then also gets the 3 bonus points. I mean, just the sliding doors moment, a 28-point differential between the most informed player in the world to, who I think is one of the best players in the world, but is just in a rocky moment right now, to say the least, in Cole Palmer.
Yeah, so I ended up on 55 points. I got a 25% red arrow, so went from 3.5K to 4.5K. Still in a great position with 4 chips left to use and 4 free transfers. So honestly, I've been rolling my transfers so often lately and just been pulling out miracle green arrows, even the tiniest ones. So, looking forward to rebounding here, but only 3 returns total in my team. Munoz, who came in for Jedi Robinson, who's been just a back-to-back 0-pointers for him. I caught that at the right time. I've gotten 4 points and 6 points from Munoz at Palace, and then also Clivert with a assist in his match, and he could have been on a much bigger haul. I think he had a disallowed VAR goal and then also hit the post, so he was very close to a massive 15-pointer himself. So 14, 15 points. So overall, pretty bleak, but all of our scores we didn't have any of the banging players. Like I've seen a lot of teams around the community who had both Watkins and João Pedro somehow, like Pras, who's been on this podcast before, and he's now passed me. He's in the 3.5K range. He got 18 points from those two players, whereas I got 1 point from Marmouche and 2 points from Wood. So better days ahead, hopefully. And Marmouche is a player that he started 5 games in a row and then was sat to the bench, and lo and behold, Doku can't get it done. Foden can't get it done. So I expect Marmouche to come right back in. And honestly, with any City asset, as we've seen over the years, they usually play like 5 out of 6 games, maybe 5 out of 7. So there will be some rotation there, but it's so bizarre. We're recording on Wednesday to have both Liverpool and Manchester City out of Champions League this early. So now they will turn all their focus to the Premier League, and Mo is going to firmly stay in my team as they look to chase records. They have the Premier League pretty much wrapped up, but lost in PKs. I wasn't able to watch the game yesterday, Bucks, but I know it was a thriller versus the lads that they had to take down.
Yeah, great shout. Manchester City will have doubles. Liverpool now without the distraction of midweek Champions League, but will not have any double game weeks for the remainder of the season as they look ahead to their Carabao Cup final against Newcastle. Let's just bring in Black Wolf. He's getting better. He's prioritizing himself and his health, which we fully support because health is wealth. And, life is too short. So we just want to make sure he puts himself first. He ends up on 56 points. He's the top man in game week 28, but still lands on a red arrow down to 492,000 in the world. The game week average in the FPL game, 52 points. So pretty mediocre game week all in all, but that was not the case. And we want to congratulate the manager of the game week, Mood Irfan. His squad, Jazzy, land on 93 points. Ooh. Using the assmanship to great effect. Captain Salah, Mark Cucurella, 15 points. Henderson, 10 points.
15 pointers for Cucurella's paella. Good Lord.
Yeah, I could use an Estrella, even though it's not even 5 p.m. here. But don't tell my kids that when I drive to pick them up from school. He had Glasner add in 8 points, Munoz with 6, and Kluivert with 5. So in an overall down game week, credit to Mood. He spikes 31 points on the average manager. So bravo to him, and job well done. Again, if you're new here, we will shout out the top scorer in our free-to-enter podcast mini league, the Press Play Premiership, each and every episode. So credit to you, Mood. There will be a free kit going out to the overall winner. And Brian, you're not too far off that number 1 place. I think you're sitting pretty in third right now. So that would make it really easy. I'd buy your baby on the way kit. That would be a lot cheaper than the full-size one I'm hoping to send to one of our listeners.
Yeah, if I somehow come back, I think the player in first place is 32 points ahead of me at this point in time. That's pretty impressive. They're on 2,028 total points. So I got my work cut out for me, but even if I were to make the comeback, we will certainly send the kit to the person who ends in second. I don't want to get any free kits. You can send me a little baby Chelsea kit just as a gift later on.
Yeah, I'll send you a baby one for your baby level of fandom. This is not a participation trophy award kind of podcast. It's going to the overall winner, and it's not going to be you, Brian. I'm predicting that here and now on this podcast.
Ouch. No faith.
Let's take our first break. When we come back, we'll dive into the action and fast forward to blank game week 29.
All right. Blank game week 29. We have 4 teams who will not be featuring due to the Cup final over the weekend. So we have Liverpool versus Newcastle in that Cup, and then their fixtures who they were going to have on the schedule are Crystal Palace and Villa. So those 4 teams will not be blanking. Those 4 teams will be blanking. And with that being said, we've known this for a long time, and I think managers are pretty well positioned. And honestly, with the recent injuries and suspensions to players like Cunha and Mateta, those are players that just don't have a staying power in people's teams. So it's kind of forced people, I think, to use their transfers and maybe take hits. And kind of shy away from the free hit team, but we'll definitely cover some of our top assets that we would have in a free hit team if you are going that route. Then I think let's just pivot to what are the best matches to target for FPL Halls, Bucks.
Sure, let's get right into it. I think there are three standout matches. Unfortunately, I think the favorites are all the away side, so they'll all be traveling, hoping for 3 points in the table and for many more points for their FPL managers. Let's start with Nottingham Forest. They're one of the teams in focus in blank game week 29. They're traveling to play at Ipswich Town. Now, I don't know about you, but I think Chris Wood is one of those kind of short list of most essential names for blank game week 29. He should be pretty much in 100% of engaged managers teams, whether on free hit or otherwise. And I think Forest have enough to get this done quite comfortably. 3-0 to the visitors. What are you
And they're
predicting?
coming off the heels of a 1-0 victory versus City, where Milinkovic pretty much pocketed Haaland and did not have any joy in that match. But
yeah,
for
him
this
and
one,
Murillo, brilliant.
I've somehow gotten to the rank that I am this season without owning a single defender from Forest, and they've really just continued to step up. All their back lines are options. So I believe they'll also face Manchester United in game week 30. So going with one of their assets from a defensive point of view also makes sense to pair. Personally, I'm also looking at maybe adding somebody like Callum Hudson-Odoi, the ex-Chelsea lad, or even Alanga, because those guys are only 5.2 and 5.3 million. So I could easily hide them in game week 30 when Mo comes in for off the bench. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about right now for that one. I expect this one to be a comfortable 2-0 victory for Forest.
All right, I like that. We're aligned here. Next one up, Wolves out Southampton. Now, I've marked this down as a match to target for FPL Halls, but if you actually look at the table, these two teams are not all that far apart, and especially without Cunha for Wolves, I'm putting on my Dan Blackwolf sexy hat right now. I think this is actually a little bit more of a spicy match than we initially would have predicted a couple weeks ago, but I still think the visitors have enough. I think this is 2-1 to the lads in yellow. Go Wolves.
They've been playing a lot better as well. They came off of a draw 1-1 versus Everton. And so I think they just are in a pretty good moment and pretty good patch considering their earlier form. But without Cunha, it's really hard to pin down any assets. You could go with Ryan Ait-Nouri if you're looking for a cheaper defender with some upside, but over the last 10 game weeks or so, he has not really been attacking at all. And they're kind of playing, he's in a little more reserved role. So I don't really see myself bringing in any of their assets, but Southampton, they're abysmal. And they somehow wiped the clean sheet versus Trent over the past weekend. That was a sloppy goal for Van Dijk and Allison to concede, and that they were up 1-0 at halftime. Pretty crazy. Kind of first 45 minutes where Liverpool could not get through. But yeah, I'm aligned with you. 2-1 to the Wolves. And predicting who scores those goals, I wouldn't pick any of those players. I know one of our good buddies, Connor Hunt, aka at FPL_Hunt, went with JSL because he was trying to plan his Haaland moves and needed a cheap forward. Ugh, he got 1 point last week. I think a yellow card. Not a great option anywhere here from the Wolves attack.
Yeah, one player I do want to just put the spotlight on is this 4 million defender, Agbadu. Now, he's a new signing for Wolves. Blackwolf raves about him. He thinks he's the future of their defense. He's nailed. He will be playing center back. Pretty much 100% certainty on that if you trust Bucks, which you shouldn't, and if you trust Blackwolf, who is the definitive source of all things Wolves content here in the States. So I really like that option if you need to get the funds to get Haaland in. Trent, who we should mention went down with injury in that second match against PSG. He had to come off the pitch. He's now listed as being out for the Cup final. Could be out for longer. Who knows? It's a little early days with the international break to come. But Agbadu, great option to free up over 3 million in the bank. So I really like that option for, less team value managers like myself. So he's a name to put into focus. Though both of us, I think, are in agreement. No clean sheet.
Yeah, Agbadu and then Cresswell at 3.9 million in West Ham. They're going to be facing the Evertonians. So there could be a possible shot in the dark there for a clean sheet for West Ham under Potter there too. Next up,
Now, I
Manchester
just want to
United.
ask, you wouldn't bring either of those guys in with free transfers, would you? Because they're probably going to be cannon fodder pretty much any other game week.
I mean, if you really are tight on funds and it's going to enable Haaland coming into your team for the captaincy, for a 1 week shout, I don't mind it. I
Okay.
would probably lean Cresswell, but it's not great. I don't see a ton of clean sheets this weekend, maybe only a few, and mostly NFO. So if you could possibly stretch to get like Nico Williams, who's like 4.4, 4.5, he's been playing really well lately. But yeah, these teams are bottom 5 in the league for a reason.
Yeah. All right. Last but not least, speaking of teams towards the bottom of the table, we have Manchester United playing at Leicester. That's the final match of the game week on Sunday afternoon. Now, I don't like either of these teams, and I don't think either of them are having a great season. But we have to be confident in saying that Bruno Fernandes will be clear and away the best player on the pitch in this match. And so because of that, I think this is 2-0, but maybe Leicester finally find their way towards the back of the goal with
I mean,
Onana's help.
They haven't scored at home in like 6 matches. They've been so abysmal.
It's bad when your home goal scoring form is worse than your away goal scoring form. And both them are like in the relegation zone. It's brutal.
Those poor fans at the King Power just showing up for a month and a half and not seeing a single goal from their team at home. That's rough. But
imagine
right now,
wasting part of your precious weekend every week going to see that team. I mean, and that's the product that they put out there. I mean, Ruud van Nistelrooy, holy cannoli. Talk about a guy who's had a total 180 from his playing career to his coaching career. That guy could not coach the dream team to a result. It's so bad.
I mean, the bottom 3 teams this year are just so flippin' bad. Like, they're so miserable, and they're clearly the 3 worst teams. So going with Bruno in this one, I don't mind it at all. He's going to be on a lot of those set pieces, on pens. He had a beautiful free kick goal to wipe the Gabriel clean sheet in my team. That was a bit frustrating. I think Raya could have shaded over a little bit more. He was cheating on that one too much. But overall, he's in a purple patch right now. 10 points versus Everton, 10 points versus Ipswich, and 9 points versus Arsenal. I fancy him to get at least an assist in this game. And you have seen some of the set pieces come off for goals lately for the likes of the Red Devils. So we'll see how they get through their Europa Conference or Europa League match tomorrow. They play on Thursday. So that's the only thing that's just, I want to make sure that there's no injuries to Palmer or Bruno before making my transfers. But I am weighing up Bruno for my team for this week as a strategy of attacking Leicester because they are putrid.
Yeah, my only hesitation with Bruno is, like you mentioned, they then play Forest in 30. So he's probably nailed if you're on free hit. I don't love the move as much with free transfers. But who cares what I think? Everything I'm touching is turning to dog shit this season. And that's why I'm wearing the doggy costume for this episode. I'm in the doghouse in FPL this year. Let's transition, switching gears to the best matches in real life. Now, I actually think this is quite compelling of a fixture list. Probably a lot of managers are sitting here like, there's not a lot of clean sheets. There's not a lot of excitement with 2 matches going without, but I love the looks. Brighton at Manchester City, I think, is the get your popcorn match of this game week. Brighton are, like you like to say, in a purple patch of form right now, ever since they got the doors blown off 7-0 or however much it was by Forest.
Won 4 straight victories in the Premier League, their first time in their club's history. So they're going for an extension of that streak to 5. And City, again, City should be putting out their best 11 in this one, and I think there's going to be at least 3 or 4 goals total in this match.
Oh, I think higher. I think City win this 3-2, and I think the fact that Haaland is playing at home should play a factor when we talk about captaincy a little bit later in the episode.
Absolutely. And then for me, I'm just hoping that Marmoush comes right back into the team. I think he's been an exciting add to the Premier League and to Manchester City, and he's obviously finding his feet, but I need him to start. I went from João Pedro to Cunha, and then Cunha to Marmoush. It's been rough as frickin' João Pedro just comes out of nowhere and returns 3 straight matches in a row, putting up 9-pointers. That rat Fink.
Yeah, he's shanking you right now. I think, you went early. Can you admit you're a little O-face curious for Omar? Yeah. Oh, one
Oh,
pointer.
wow. Look, I'm trying to spike a differential. It's mainly my only differential, like in my team, it feels like, for my rank level. But he's going to be a player that I think between game weeks 29 and the home fixture versus Leicester, you really want to have probably 2 assets in that Leicester match. So he's going to be popular. I think I'm looking at Gavardiol. I'm looking at Haaland. So I just expect, especially for the Haaland move, which we'll discuss in our hashtag FPL community questions, and how to get him and what's the priority for captaincy. So we'll discuss a little bit later, but I'm firmly looking to bring Haaland in.
All right. So what's your prediction in this match? And then I'm going to spring a X or Y question on you once I get it.
I'm going to go with 3-1 to City. They're going to be. They've had a lot of success versus Brighton over the last couple of years. I feel like we've just seen Haaland lay
They've
down
had success against
Van Heck.
everybody. They've won 4 Premier
fair.
League titles in a row.
Who's counting? Who's counting with that? That streak is going to come to an end this year, as it's one of their worst teams that they've had in a long time.
Brian, so understanding that you went early on Marmoush, for neutrals who are planning their moves or even planning their free hit teams for game week 29, where do you stand, Marmoush or Foden? You can only pick one.
Oh, definitely Marmoush this week, especially because Isak isn't playing, Mateta's not playing. There's a opportunity to have a Marmoush player in your side, and he's 2 million cheaper than Foden. Foden is not living up to his high price tag this season, and he played 65 minutes. He was subbed off as well in the start, so I don't see him doing the business.
Let me play devil's advocate here for just 1 second. So understanding the price difference and the positional difference, those are both clearly important. Now, outside of that, I think it's a 17-pointer for Marmoush where he had the hat trick in the first half.
All blanks.
He's a blanker merchant. So, I mean, what have you seen from Marmoush outside of that 145-minute spell to tell you that he's an actual legit FPL asset? Or is it just blind faith?
It's just a short-term punt for 2 game weeks before I very, very likely wildcard in game week 31. Okay. And between the fixtures, I was looking at Wissa or Marmoush, and I'm not sure. Did you go with Wissa last week?
I'm Misa on Wissa.
Yeah, I mean he was very unlucky not to get at least 1 assist in that match. Didn't really have a goal threat, but yeah,
that was my jinx.
You definitely could have got some more points there. But Marmoush got 1 point, Wissa got 2, so it's one of those situations. But yeah, I think it's the Leicester match is just, I want to look at the next 2 game weeks, and where I'll definitely have a very different team to a lot of people around my ranked tier is having possibly a triple up on City and just hoping it comes good either in 29 or 30, or of course the dream, los dos.
Yeah, 2 is better than 1. I rate that. All right, let's close out. I think the last 2 matches that are worthwhile popcorn worthy affairs are both London derbies. We have Spurs traveling to play Fulham. Now, I have to say, this is almost a must win, these next 2 matches for Spurs. Otherwise, they might as well just punt the season, rest all the senior players, because this is really their chance of redemption. They play in Europa. They're down 1-0 against AZ Alkmaar. That will be at home. And then they travel within London to play against Fulham. I think you need to get both results. You need 2 wins out of 2 to save Ange Postecoglou's job. And I think they have just enough with the team coming back to fitness. I think they win against AZ Alkmaar 2-0, and I think they win against Fulham 2-1. You like those takes?
Yeah, I like those takes. I think we saw them get very, very lucky. They were down 2-0 to Bournemouth, and somehow Sarr crosses one into the back of the net on accident, and then they get a pen in the last 10 minutes of the match by Sonny Boy. So, they're getting some of their guys back. Van de Ven is starting to ramp up and get some more minutes. He's very important next to Romero.
Yeah, Romero too.
Yeah, so I think, not somebody I'm going to be investing in. Like even on free hit, I'm not seeing anybody go with any Spurs assets because I think, quite frankly, there's better options elsewhere when you're looking at the likes of City and most likely NFO as the really cornerstones plus Bournemouth. Yeah, let's
I don't
talk
know.
about
I
that one.
think
That's the last match too. Is
Son.
Bournemouth and Brentford. That's gonna be a really entertaining match. I think both teams are in a good moments. More so Bournemouth than Brentford, but the Brentford boys can score on anybody. And since Zabarny got his stupid red card, they've been giving up some goals.
Sure.
Hutchinson hasn't delivered any points over the last 6 matches, and it's been pretty abysmal. So I expect there to be goals in Brentford and Bournemouth, which is great because we both have assets from those teams, right?
Yeah, I'm a little overexposed in that match. I think I have 4 guys. I have Hoiston, Dango, Wisa, and Mbomo. I
Ooh,
think
no
that match
Cliver.
could be. Yeah, don't I know it? I'm trying to support dads, new and soon to be left, right, and center, but I'm not supporting the guy in FPL who's getting the points while also becoming a new father. Let's go to the match that has the most importance to my fandom, but I also think is probably the most important match for Chelsea this season, and that's Chelsea traveling to play against Arsenal. Now, Arsenal have just kind of like a practice, this is just like a warm up training session against PSV. They're already up 7-1 on aggregate in the Champions League, and they're playing at home. So I expect we'll see a lot of academy debuts. We'll see some featured and minutes for, players deep on the bench like Raheem Sterling. And so, Chelsea, they will also be playing one day later in the Conference League against Copenhagen. And that's a much tighter match, only up 2-1 at home. But I actually think this is a great time to be playing against Arsenal. They're in a bit of a wobble. Now, that's not saying Chelsea are world beaters at the moment, but I
They were
think even getting
pretty bad versus Leicester. It was pretty
yes,
listless. I mean,
yes.
Cole Palmer had his little sniffles, and he went off
Yeah, his
early,
streak
especially missing a pen.
continues.
Yeah, 1 return in 7 matches for 11 million. Oof, that is fucking terrible. That is abysmal. So
Not what you want.
I still fancy this to be most likely a 2-1 victory for the home team. I'm not sure if Chelsea has enough right now with their wingers not scoring goals. Cole Palmer's out of form. Obviously, Nkuku is so easy to bottle up. He's not sprinting at all, like you've said many times in the
I
group
hate that
chat.
guy.
So I think maybe we get a set piece goal or something, but I don't see a lot of joy. It's especially the way that Arteta is going to man mark Palmer. I mean, he has been very familiar with his game growing up in the academy at Manchester City and seeing him blossom. So I think they're going to double team him as much as possible and hack the shit out of him. And I just don't see anybody else from Chelsea really probably being able to step up.
Oh, I'm on the flip side. I think a point is almost as good as a win for Chelsea in this match, and I think it's going to be 2-2. And I think the goals are going to come from super random places. I think we could see like a party goal, a Colwill header, a Fofana assist, just like names that you would not consider as FPL assets whatsoever are going to be all over the score sheet in this one. So, yeah, I think it is a very compelling blank game week fixture run, which is tough because it just makes selection of a starting 11 that much more in the weeds for managers who are trying to spike hauls. And so there are a lot of differentials that could have major upside in this game week with so much on the line and so much uncertainty.
Originally, I was looking at Ethan Wanyeri to possibly come in to help fund my bigger moves across my attacking side, but he comes off at the 59th minute for the 1-pointer over the weekend. He's not starting versus PSV, so I think he's still in line to start on the right versus Chelsea, but he's a child. He's 17 years old. Like anybody who thinks he's going to be playing 90 minutes is out of their damn mind. But now a lot of managers are just facing problems where they have Dango or Wanyeri as well.
Or
It's a little
both,
bit of a
like
risk.
me.
Or both. My goodness. Yeah, it's tough. So you're just hoping for the best from those cheap guys, but minutes are so up in the air, especially since Evan Nilsson has come back into the side and has looked pretty solid. He got a 9-pointer, 5.6 million, I believe. So he's actually another possible option for managers to grab him if you think his minutes are pretty secure. So I like bringing in any asset from Bournemouth this week, not named Dango.
Damn, that was a personal shot. It feels like I caught that stray right in the
Yeah,
in the
I know you've been
liver.
trying to cut corners on prices and went for Dango playing out of position. It's just pretty unfortunate because the length of that injury for Evan Nilsson was supposed to be a couple weeks longer, and 29 is when you need him the most. And now Dango is just too much of a wild card. So I
Well, I
think
will
that's a
say,
question some people are
I
thinking about even taking a hit to remove Dango. Yeah, that I don't particularly love. Unless if you're going to get like a like for like player, like if you're going to go for Cho or somebody in that Alenga, those guys are both around the same price as Dango, but they're going to have to get at least one return to even net neutral. And those guys, they just to me don't have brace potential. So, a few double returns here and there, but not a ton of double digit spikes for those two.
I like
Would you
that
take a hit?
perspective.
Would you take
That
a hit
was
for Dango out?
no, because I think that the Semenyo yellow card slash potential injury situation
Yeah, he's
could
got 8
be
yellow
a
cards,
life
right?
raft. Yeah, so that could be a life raft for any managers like myself who have that Dango sized problem in their midfield. I think I'm just going to start him and risk it and just hope that, I can get some bench jam if, in fact, Rico Lewis or Jacob Greaves want to do anything for my FPL team, which is like saying that I have fuck all plan because, that plan is a disaster in and of itself, right?
All right, let's take our next break here and then wrap up with FPL community questions and then our transfer plans and captaincy shouts. We'll be right back.
And we're back. Let's keep the good vibes going. Let's address the mailbag from the hashtag FPL USA and wider hashtag FPL community on social media. Let's start. Question from Connor at FPL_Hunt. He's having another great season. Guy just was able to buy his first brewski, but I think he's going to be putting another top 25K finish under his belt. He's asking thoughts on going mega differential with a Kluivert captaincy in blank game week 29. Brian, you like that?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about our captain picks, but if you're not going to bring in Haaland, you're kind of looking at a pool of Chris Wood, Kluivert, and then Bruno Fernandes as your likely captaincy options. And that's again, it just makes Haaland so much more appealing to use for not only 29, but then captain in game week 30 home to Leicester. So Kluivert is in great form. I thought he played a very spectacular match. Like we said before, very unlucky not to get a double-digit haul versus the Spuds. But man, for captaincy, at least he's on pens. And you always want to captain a penalty taker, and we've seen that over the last couple of game weeks, right? Like it's
makes a big difference.
Solved Mo Salah's kind of drought a little bit, but he's got 9 pens this season. That's so many pens.
Salah does, yeah,
Yeah.
because he plays for Liverpool.
Ba-dum-dum.
Golly,
But
and I think
Kluivert,
he's made 8 of 9 of them, right? He's only missed 1 this season.
Yeah, Kluivert, cap. I mean, I'm surprised. I feel like the Analyticos would want to go and bring in Haaland for the next 2 matches, especially if you're going to wildcard in 31. If you're not, if you're going to be looking at a later wildcard of maybe 34 or 35 potentially, then it's a little bit more difficult. But yeah, the odds are that from the FA Cup results that City probably beat Bournemouth and get through, and therefore they'll probably likely double in game week 33. And so that's another thing where you're going to see Haaland starting to gain momentum. Price is going to go up. And I think he's just a good pick. And I'd rather captain him over Kluivert.
Yeah, I don't hate the Kluivert shot. I actually, he would be pretty close to Bruno if you were doing my full rankings. But I just think that Chris Wood, that's a much better fixture, despite Brentford's recent home form. They've been actually one of the worst teams at home, which is a complete 180 switch from how they were playing in the first 20 game weeks of the season, where they were actually above Liverpool when you looked only at their home form. I mean, the G-Tech used to be a fortress. Right now, it's almost like a bounce house where goals are just finding the back of the net. So,
Yeah, this one's actually at Bournemouth though. So like if you're looking at Bumo for cap, I don't like it away to Bournemouth. So I mean,
keep it in, Brian. Keep it in.
This season I've
Who
really
knows
tried
where
to focus
Bournemouth
on
and Brentford are anyway.
I've really tried to focus on captaining players who are at home, unless it's just one of those bottom three teams. And that's where, if you want to go with Chris Wood playing away to Ipswich, that would follow that kind of rule that
Sure.
I've created for myself. So I'm just planning to own all of them. I think I'm going to own Bruno. I'm going to own Kluivert. I'm going to own Haaland. I'm going to own Bumo. I'm going to own Chris Wood. And that's going to be a pretty good non-free hit team for me.
Wow, piss off. All right, let's go to the next question. Andrew Steinberg, he also just shared that he is going to be a first-time dad. Congratulations to you and your partner, bro. That is very exciting news.
And then on top of that, he popped the question as well last weekend. So massive congrats to you, Steinberg, and his lovely wife. I see them here on the Central Coast in California quite a bit. So yeah, super excited that he finally put the money down for that ring. That he's a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan, and he was like, I was watching the Super Bowl with him, and he was yelling and going crazy, like, give me my ring, like wearing his Eagles jersey, and all the friends of his were like, give Ide her ring, give Ide her ring.
There you go. Congratulations to Stein and his partner. He's going to be called Poppy and Papa very soon. I like that for him.
That's right.
Let's go to his question. Enough brown nosing.
how would we compare the Forest midfielder assets? So you have Callum Hudson-Odoi at 5.2, you have Alanga at 5.3, and then Morgan Gibbs-White has continued to trickle in with a decent amount of points. He's much more expensive though, so if funds are tight, I think it'd be really hard to bring in the little Wario lookalike. But what are your thoughts? Who's the best pick of those three?
I mean, I think it's Gibbs-White.
6.5
because he's Mr. Consistent. He's just more expensive. So I know he's not even on the cards for managers in my position that have slightly less team value. And I don't love the move of selling Palmer to bring in someone who doesn't have penalties. So Gibbs-White, sometimes he has penalties if Wood is already off the pitch, but that's not what I'm going to go roost and run to as the move. I actually really like the prospects of bringing Elanga. I think he's the kind of counter-attacking player that will have great joy in this Ipswich match. And then he's playing against what used to be his boyhood club in Manchester United. So I just think those two fixtures together, super motivated, lots to play for. And, he has a point to prove because, if Forest are going to be a team that are going to make Champions League next season, I think his position is one of the ones that he's going to be really fighting for with other top players in Europe to keep his place. So I think these two matches, a lot of eyes are going to be on Forest. I think that's a great chance to really cement his place in the starting 11 for the long term. So
yeah, Elanga is a ton of assists. He's got 3 goals and 8 assists, and then Gibbs-White has 5 goals and 9 assists. So pretty consistent. You're going to get more assist threat from both of those, but they're funneling to Chris Wood. And so then you'll also get those points because I think Chris Wood is almost a must own this week, just given that he's so highly, his EO is going to be so high, right?
Yeah, and I really like one fact about Elanga. He has the most targeted balls to his striker of any player in the Premier League. So when he has the ball in an attacking position, he's getting the ball to Chris Wood. So especially if you're considering Chris Wood captaincy, I really like pairing Elanga with that move because kind of if Chris Wood returns, you have a pretty good chance of spiking 3 returns out of that 1 goal. So that's just something kind of a little meta that's maybe a little high level here. Stein, get ready for a lot of sleepless nights. You might be listening to this podcast even more next season.
Yeah, Cho has 5 goals on the season, but he scored 2 in his last 3. So maybe gaining some confidence there. And in the last 3 matches, he's played 90, 90, and 86. So you love that he's staying on the field, especially versus a trodden and run down Ipswich team that could maybe give up a few late goals. So Lots of good picks there, and I think just a great transfer in to help free up funds.
Yeah, and I don't think you go wrong with any of those three options, to
Yeah,
be
you
honest.
just
I think
hope that one of them scores their goal that week.
yeah, exactly. Let's keep it moving. FPL_Wrangler. He's asking about Haaland or no Haaland. I'll give it to you first.
Haaland in. It's time. I think especially with Palmer having a bat shit terrible fixture away to Arsenal, and the fact that he's just not done anything over the last 7 weeks is going to fund a lot of Haaland owners this week. So I think it's a no-brainer captaincy. Now, whether you're going to get a brace versus Brighton, I'm not so sure, but I do expect Haaland at home to get 8 or 9 points, and that'll be good enough for captaincy this week from my perspective. And who knows? He's done very well against those center backs at Brighton, and if Brighton are going to go into this match and kind of press and play a little bit, there could be a few runs that have not been open for Haaland as of late, and so I kind of see a few of those long balls maybe being played through to Haaland that he can shove off one of those weaker center backs and get on the end of those balls. So, and then again, next week, it's great to have him. That's why it's like anybody who's free hitting this week and then they're not going to have Haaland for 30, it's kind of shitty, right? Like you're in a spot where you're going to captain him this week, but then next week you're going to be without him. It is important to note that Palmer has Tottenham at home, which is historically like a pretty good match for him versus the Spurs. So that is something that I will probably be taking on and just hoping that he scores one or fewer goals versus Tottenham from an FPL perspective.
I think Haaland's a priority transfer in if you could do it without selling Salah and or Palmer. I really like the idea. If you can
I think Salah you can't sell him now because they're out of Champions League, and they're going to obviously try and win this cup match versus Newcastle, and then from there it's just Salah is so driven by scoring goals and setting records and hopefully getting a new contract so he stays in the Premier League and doesn't go to Saudi to die and wither away at the end of his career. So not to die specifically, but you know what I mean there, Bucks.
Yeah, I think Haaland, he's almost like a shield pick this game week because most free hitters are going to have him in and likely captain him. And then, I think the move is, especially if you have banked free transfers like you do, Brian, is going to be going for Haaland any way possible. For hook or by crook, Haaland will be coming in for many managers. And I think this is a great entry point, even if he's not a long-term pick. So I'm also with you. Haaland in. Let's close out these great questions. Jeremy, aka at Barrister FPL, is asking, how many players do we need to have without hits to justify skipping the free hit? I think 9.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot because a lot of people have like Greaves or Dango or Wanyeri, and those guys might not even play. So
I know.
Yeah, kind of tough to figure out if you're going to be able to field 10. I would feel pretty comfortable. And you have to have 8 attackers. That's the most important thing. Having 8 attackers, the only clean sheet that looks good.
7 attackers.
7, yeah, excuse me. 7 attackers this week. That's the most important thing. The only clean sheet banker is probably NFO. And so everybody else is just like, we haven't seen a ton of hauls outside of Munoz and Trent over the last 5 game weeks. So, but in terms of taking hits, I would say up to a -8 I would take to save your free hit for later in the season. Anything more than that, I would skip. So that's kind of where I stand.
Yeah, and I tend to be the most out there rogue manager. I agree. -8 is kind of the max I would stomach here, unless you're planning to save the wild card for like game week 33 or 35. If you could set your team up nicely for the next couple game weeks and have maybe 9 playing guys without a keeper, or have 10 guys and you're playing Greaves or I mentioned Rico Lewis, these guys that are, you're not going to count on them for big point totals, but they're a warm body that could feature. I think that's perfectly good because we've had a number of game weeks to prepare for 29. Now, of course, no one can prepare for Mateta getting karate kicked in the head or for Cunha losing his damn mind. You can't prepare for that. But we also know that blank game week 34 is probably going to be something that is much more sizable from a missing in action level of matches to this one. So I just think pocketing it for that game week or for what could be a small double game week 36 probably provides greater utility and upside. All right, great questions from the community. Thank you, everyone, for sharing their questions on social media. We love having you participate in making this program. Let's close out the episode. I know this is a blank game week, midweek quickie. Let's close with our transfer plans and captaincy shouts. Brian, let's start with you. You are the man of patience, of wisdom, and of pragmatism. 4 free transfers going into blank game week 29. Kudos.
I think now is the time for me to use all of my coveted free transfers that I've been hoarding. And I am looking at some big moves in my side. But like I mentioned before, I think I'm going to have all 5 of the top captaincy shouts. And that really instills me with a lot of confidence going into this week. I don't have Wanyeri or Dango. So I'm looking in a pretty good position of strength. So right now, I'm just going to pull up my team on FPL.team, which one of my favorite apps to tinker around with and look at ways that I can optimize my team. So go check them out. Peter does a fantastic job in the community there. So right now, I'm planning to do a lot of moves. Good Lord. I'm looking at going Trent, Isak, Rogers, and Palmer out to Gvardiol, Haaland, Alanga, and Bruno Fernandes. Lots of transfers that I have that'll put me 0.0. So I will be priced out. I could obviously, go for Cho instead of Alanga, but it really puts me with a really strong triple up of Gvardiol, Marmoush, and Haaland for not only 29 but 30, and then having a lot of penalty takers and taking no hits. So I think there are going to be managers around me who are going to be taking hits or activating their free hit. And I'm just going to navigate it with my 4 frees. So what do you think of those moves, Bucks?
Yeah, brilliant. I don't see any fault in it. I kind of like maybe going for a Forest defender instead of Gvardiol and stashing that cash for future transfers. But I should commend you because you already have Munoz in place for 30. So I know he'll be one of your starters when they play.
And then I'll get Salah right back in as well. So I'll have Salah and Haaland in 30. So that's what I'm looking at. I think I could go with, somebody like Nico Williams, and then I could upgrade, maybe even stretch to Bowen, but Bowen away to Everton, not a great fixture. They haven't been showing it, but I could get Gibbs White instead of
I kind of like
the likes of
That's
Alanga.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, I have to tinker around with that. That's a good thought because Manchester United aren't scoring a ton of goals either. So I could go with that NFO defender and hope that they get 2 cleans in the next 2. Whereas I just don't see, I love Gvardiol's upside, but I don't see him cleaning Brighton this week. So something for me to tinker around with a little bit more.
And what about captain?
Yeah, captain is on Haaland. And like I said, I'm pretty well insulated with everybody else. So super excited to make this is the first time I've used all 4 free transfers. What a vibe. So looking forward to it.
Must be nice. Ranked inside of the top 5K, 4 free transfers, no hits, and we'll have Erling Haaland as captain. Dan, who's missing in action here, again, thinking of you, brother. He's going to go Isak and Palmer out for Haaland and a midfielder of choice. He was saying, he's undecided as well. He's going to be captaining Erling Haaland. And that leaves little old me. I'm deciding between 2 options. I only have 1 free transfer, but I have so much money in the bank. It's crazy. So I am considering either Watkins and Trent out for a -4, and I would bring in Haaland and Nico Williams. Now that's exact funds. I really like that move. Clean, easy, not too Bucks wild. The other option is to kind of take Palmer and rip him out of my team for a -8. And that would allow me to go, Haaland, Milenkovic, and say Bruno, just as an example.
Yeah. Now you could even get Aina.
Yeah, in isolation, I like that move a lot. But again, the -8 basically means I need a clean sheet plus a return, which I think is just asking too much from 2 game weeks because I am planning to wildcard in 31. So I think I'm going to keep it simple, stupid. Haaland and Nico Williams in for a -4.
Kiss it.
But I am going to be captaining Chris Wood. I want to be a little different this game week. So right now he has the armband. Erling Haaland is just looking over at that sexy older Kiwi man, and he's saying, I'll take a pina colada, please.
All right. Yeah. Bold to go with Chris Wood. Doesn't get a ton of chances, but he loves getting those 9-pointers. So I do like that. The only thing that kind of sucks is that Ipswich and Forest are on Saturday. And so if you don't get the result with your captaincy, you're going to have to go through Sunday just fearing the Haaland caps out there. So that would be a little bit stressful, but at least,
you
would
get
good,
to keep good wisdom. Maybe for my mental health, then it's just, go Haaland.
Yeah, not to mention you're also going to have Arsenal playing Chelsea on Sunday, so yeah, it's a bit of a ragtag there. It could be a rougher day at the office.
Oh, come on now, show your fandom. Believe a little bit in those Chelsea Blues.
I'm mistaken. City is playing on Saturday at the same time as Chris Wood. So, okay, yeah, good moves. I like the -4. I would just keep Palmer and keep him for the match versus Tottenham in game week 30.
All right. Awesome. This has been another excellent episode of the at FPL USA Press Play podcast. For Brian and myself, Bucks, thank you again for tuning in. You could find us on your favorite social media platform at FPL USA Press Play. And we're on all the largest, greatest, and best streaming platforms as well. Just search for the podcast FPL USA, no space, Press Play. All love. Green arrows in blank game week 29 to you, Brian, and to all of our listeners.
I need a green arrow. I'm coming off of a red. I hate to open the app and see that red arrow, but this is our last deadline for 2 weeks. We have a international friendly break coming up, so luckily I'll be in Vegas for March Madness for a little boys trip, my last one before the kiddo comes. So that'll kind of put me at ease while we have no FPL. But enjoy the matches this weekend, and good luck to everyone.
Bye-bye.